Hello, everybody. Let's see what happens if it is catching up. It's not showing that we're on yet. You got me? All right. Nice to see you guys. Well, welcome. This is kind of an inaugural event that I'm having now that YouTube is allowing two people on interviews. I'm so excited to work and do these and to line them up, but lining it up ahead, I didn't know how it would work. So, welcome everyone. We are here today. I'm Kari the Mortician, funeral director and embalmer in Michigan. And today joining us is Katey Houston from Return Home, a terramation or human composting facility out in Washington. So we get to learn today all about human composting. So, yay, welcome, Katey. Yay. So, we are going to thank you, Brummel. We're going to chat a little bit about human composting and return home first. Then we're going to go dive into questions that you guys post. So, stick with us to get to your questions. But yeah, Katey, why don't you tell us a little about return home? Katey, you're like really glitchy and keep freezing up. So I'm hearing like every third word. I don't know if there's better internet in another area or something.
Are we any better?
That is a little better. Yeah.
Okay, let me see about moving here where the internet might be better.
Okay. Stand on one foot and get a foil hat.
Right? Okay, is it any better out here?
Yes, that's much better.
Okay,
Cool. So
so
yeah, go ahead and tell us about Return Home.
so Return Home has been open for about 2.5 years now. We've served about 300 families, and we have developed a two-part process that transforms human remains into soil. Um, Basically, the first phase is a body in a vessel, which looks like a big rectangular container with straw alfalfa sawdust. Add about 3 pounds of that organic mixture to every pound of body weight. So there's a lot of material going in there. And the body is kind of sandwiched between those two layers of straw alfalfa and sawdust. And then over 30 to 40 days, it's just the microbes in the body that transform you into soil. The second phase allows the compost to rest, cool, off gas a little bit before it's ready to return home to the family.
I mean, and what is the length of time for this?
60 to 70 days total.
What is the vessel made of?
It's a polycarbonate plastic material that is like honeycombed so that it maintains temperature inside. So it's insulated.
How hot does the compost get? I'd never thought about the heat that happens
Yeah.
with composting.
And that's like a big part of it, right? So the state requires that our vessels get to 131 degrees for 72 consecutive hours. That's the temperature at which pathogens die off and that the compost becomes safe. Our vessels regularly get up to 140, 150. We don't really want them to go any higher than that for 2 weeks at a time. And that's
Okay.
just from the microbial activity. We're not adding any heat in at all.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So this is Katey Houston from Return Home. It is a human composting facility. Now, this is a new disposition option. It's newer. I mean, even though it's been around now a couple years, it's still new for most of the country. But
Mhm.
it now is legal in how many states?
7 states, 2 states have facilities.
So it's still a very new process that many people haven't been exposed to, and it is up for legislation in the next year. I mean, it's going to spread very quickly. This is completely different than cremation. There is no flame, there is no water. It is all natural. So if you took a body out, put it in a field, essentially, this is what would happen. So it is creating the most natural disposition that there possibly is. And in the end, you are left with compost that you can take home, you can donate, you can do
Mhm.
whatever with. So it's a very, very new way of doing things. Yes, you're using electricity in the facility. Yes, you're using vehicles and things. So it's not 100% green. Nothing really is, but this is as close to as you can really get.
Yeah, with the everything, with the vehicle, with the electricity, with some of the water that we add, we've calculated it to be about 90% less energy inputs than a single cremation.
I think the only thing that would make it more is if, like, if I died in Michigan, you could put me on an airplane, fly me to Washington to have this
Mhm.
process. We're getting much less green at that point, obviously.
Absolutely.
But still, if that's the disposition you want, just because dispositions are not legal in your state, it does not mean they're not available to you. So that's a huge thing to think about as well. So now, are you a licensed funeral home?
Yes, we are a licensed funeral home. I am a licensed funeral director and embalmer, and we're also a licensed NOR facility.
Okay, what is NOR for those that don't know?
Natural organic reduction, which is the legal term that they call the process.
Do you facilitate anything besides composting? Like if
Nope,
someone comes
just
in and says,
composting.
"Hey, we want to be cremated. Can you do that for us?" Are you like, "Sorry, we don't handle that here."
We don't. Here's one of our funeral partners that we work with that do. Yeah.
Which I think that's a nice way of saying that as our partners. Like we are all kind of partners and we
Yeah.
shouldn't look at it as being a huge competition, even though it kind of is. But Um, so you're in a it's more of a warehouse. It's more of a warehouse
Mhm.
style. I mean, behind you, we can see it is very welcoming, very warm, very comfortable, but it is a warehouse in the
Mhm.
end. Is it sterile feeling? Is it tell us about the
Yeah.
kind of atmosphere at the location.
Yeah. So when I started here, it looked like Costco. We had racks that were blue and orange with vessels stacked on them, and I was like, "We got to do something here." So basically, the plants have taken over. There's plants everywhere, and we've put up these amazing facade walls that slide in front of the vessels that look like a big forest. We have furniture for the families to sit with their vessels. It's everyone says yes, you're in a warehouse, but it doesn't feel like it. But also doesn't feel like a funeral home, and we made that choice on purpose too. Yeah.
Well, sometimes a spade is a spade. So you can only mask what something is so much. And in the end, it is a bit of an industrial
Hmm.
process, just like with cremation. You can only make something so comfortable, but in the end, just like at a burial at a cemetery, the backhoes are coming in, the equipment is coming in,
Yep.
and that typically happens after everybody leaves. But you try and mask it with everything up to that point.
Right.
So
Our biggest thing here is transparency. So our families know that we do use a forklift to move those vessels, and they can be a part of, being there when their vessel is moved into its spot, or when the straw and alfalfa is placed on top of the person that comes off a conveyor belt on top of the person, and families can be a part of that, and they're at least aware that it's happening. We want them to know what the process is from start to finish, because otherwise their imagination is that like grandma's in the compost heap in the backyard,
yeah.
which is couldn't be further from the truth.
Hey, Katie, go stir the compost. Yeah.
Right?
Which is not the case. So,
Not at all.
does it smell in this facility? Is there any dead body decomposing smell going on, or is it very just earthy smelling, or
So the way our facility is set up, it's like a brew pub, right? When you're brewing beer, it's sticky and stinky, but you can go in there and like have nachos and a beer with your friend and it's totally fine. So our facility is really similar. So yeah, there's like ooey gooey sticky stuff going on, but we have this amazing filtration system called Octopus that is attached to each individual vessel, that goes through a huge filter, biofilter, filters the air so that there is no smell in the facility at all. So families can sit with their vessels, they can be in the facility for services and not there's no smell at all.
so how does that work? Let's walk through the process. So a family comes in, dad's dead. We
Hmm.
want to use your natural organic reduction. Walk us
Hmm.
through what that looks like and what kind of service we have and how much we can be a part of things.
Yeah. So we offer one service here at Return Home. We call it a laying in. Now, technically it's one service, but families get to make what they want of it. So it's you get our space for 3 hours. Your person is laid in the vessel, dressed in their compostable garment on a bed of straw and alfalfa. So it's kind of like an open casket viewing. They're unembalmed, and families can spend time with them. They can place anything edible or compostable into the vessel. So flowers, letters, candy. I had a guy bring the top of his wedding cake that had been in their freezer for 25 years, put that in there. He's like, I don't know what else to do
That's
with it.
wild.
So they can put anything in there. They can interact with the process. It's not just kind of like walking by the casket and saying your goodbye. It's interactive. They can decorate the outside of the vessel. But even before that happens, everyone who comes into our care is given a bath, and a family can be part of that if they want to. Our big thing is the hands that cared for you in life should also be able to care for you in death. And if that's something you want, we're more than happy to facilitate it. And more families than I thought are accepting that offer. Um, I don't know. I just thought that most people wouldn't want to do that. But when you ask, they're like, no. And then they call you the next day and they're like, actually, yeah, like I gave him his first bath, I'll give him his last, or yeah, I've been caring for him for the last 2 years of his life. I'm gonna finish caring for him now. So it's been really cool to involve families in parts of the process that I previously hadn't been able to have them a part of.
Now, can they have a service there of sorts that's, like a clergy come in and have like guests and people come in? I mean, how many people can come and
Yeah.
what does that look like?
So, like I said about the laying in, we give you the space for 3 hours, and you get to do what you want. So can have up to 100 people in here. We've had traditional Catholic services here. We've had dance parties. It's whatever the family wants to make that space into. We have chairs and a podium and stuff if they want to use that. But we've also had families who keep it more casual, and they have different art stations set up so that family can make art to put in the vessel or stick on the vessel. So it's an event space for them to create what speaks to them.
That's pretty amazing. Now, one thing you have told me previously, because Katie came and spoke to the class I teach for mortuary school, and one of the most profound things was this is one of the only ways that you can be with your loved one longer and have a slower, longer goodbye. Whether
Yep.
that's good or bad, that's all the personal mental psychology. But talk a little about because you explained it so well, and I just was like, oh, like it was very impactful when you explained it.
Good. Yeah. So oftentimes families find the physical separation from their person the hardest, right? You pick them up at the house, they're gone, they maybe never see them again, or they never get to be in the presence of them again until they're returned in an urn or they're at the cemetery in the ground. So with our service, they're able to be with their vessel for that 60-day period that their person is with us. They can visit, they can futz with photos on the front, they can leave different things on top. Their separation from that person is slowed down. And I thought that would be an issue at the beginning. I thought, oh my goodness, like 60 days, I got to explain to this family and keep in touch with them the whole way. But for the most part, it just kind of moves with their grief. It's they're not ready to have their person returned in an urn right away. They want this time to spend extra with them to, tend to their vessel. So yeah, it's a slower physical separation, which our families really enjoy.
Yeah, I love that about it. Now, a lot of people are asking about the bones. So, how are they becoming compost? What is that? How do they go from skeleton to mixed in the compost so you can't tell?
Yeah. So at the end of that first phase of 30 to 40 days, the person has completely disappeared. Any bone remains and anything inorganic remains. So stent screws, hip replacements, that kind of thing. We go to what we call a screening. So the vessel is completely emptied, everything is taken out of it, and it goes past us on a conveyor belt so that we can pick out those inorganic things and recycle them just like they do after cremation. And then all of that material, compost and bone, goes through a machine that's very similar to what happens after cremation. It's called a cremulator. And it breaks the bone not into powder like cremation, but into like big chunks like this. So that then in the second 30 days in the smaller vessel, the microbes can completely consume that bone. They basically just can't get through that really hard exterior, but once you expose the interior, they can do their magic and they're gone after the second 30 days.
What is your accent? Have I ever asked you that? Like, you have a little
What do you
accent.
think it is?
I don't know, it's almost like a little Britishy hanging in
Yes,
there or something,
yes,
is it? Okay.
yes,
I don't know if I've ever asked you that, but I am hearing it more in this conversation, so I love it.
yes. Most people think I'm from, like, Georgia or somewhere, but no, from England, yes.
That's awesome. Yay. So at the end, I mean, what is the end result? How much compost are we talking? What can you do with it? Can I take it home? Can I donate? What is the end result there?
Yeah. So you have about 250 pounds of compost or a cubic yard or a truck bed full. So it's a lot because remember when you go in at the beginning, you're going in with 3 pounds of that straw, alfalfa, and sawdust for every pound of your body weight. So it's a large amount left. Some families choose to take it all, some take a little tiny amount, some take half of it. Anything that is not taken by the family, we have an 8-acre woodland property about 10 miles from our facility here that it can be spread at a no additional charge. Runs right along a public trail so families can walk that trail. And we've had a couple families put memorial benches along that trail too. So they're
Oh,
finding
that's
ways to
cool.
permanently memorialize too, which is kind of awesome.
That's pretty amazing. And let's say I get a bucket of compost I want to take home. What percentage of that really is my loved one once you kind of do the math and break down?
Less than 2%. Your person is completely gone. Um, One thing I do find super interesting is a cadaver dog will alert to the soil. There is still DNA in that soil, so a cadaver dog will still alert to it, but it's compost, right? So wherever you're going to use it, it needs to be mixed with regular potting soil because it's nutrient dense. So one of those little 2 pound bags that we have is enough to plant a tree. It's
Wow,
it's really nutrient dense.
that's awesome. Well, and that was one question I was going to ask about DNA. Like with cremation, DNA is completely 100% destroyed, but because you're not burning, you're not doing some of that, that you would still have some of that in there probably.
Yes, would absolutely have it in there, and then your person's DNA gets to become part of a tree somewhere, and they literally get to live on. So,
That's crazy. That's wild. So we're joining right now with Katie Houston, who is from Return Home, a terramation organic natural no, I said that backwards. Natural organic reduction facility out in Washington. There's only 2 states that have these facilities, and so she is one of the main ones in the country, and she's telling us all about how to compost your loved ones when they die. Tell us cost. That's always
yeah,
people's question is, "How much does this actually cost to do?"
within Washington State, it's $4,950. That includes picking the person up from where they pass away, the process itself, returning the soil in burlap sacks, and a death certificate.
Which a lot of people say, "Oh, that's pricey because you're just composting them." Something to think about though is this facility only can house so many individuals at one time. So you have to figure how much you have to make revenue as a business with these vessels because you can't do more than so much at a time. And so to
Mhm.
operate as a business, it's called overhead. And unfortunately, you kind of max out. I mean, if you have 10 vessels, you can only handle 10 revenue sources at one time.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you get how many people do you turn away because you're full? Or have you gotten to that point yet?
We have not reached capacity yet. We're at about 2/3 currently, so we have 74 vessels.
That's a lot.
So yeah,
Wow.
74 people a month we can take care of. And I think one thing about the price is that this is a process that we're monitoring for 60 full days. Like
Yeah.
it's a long process with a lot of kind of human interaction with the process. So yeah,
Can family be there when you empty them after that first 30 days when you bring that bone out? Can they be there during all that and watch all of that process as well?
they can be there when we open the vessel, and we've definitely had families do that. They can't be in the room where the cremulator machine is, OSHA
Right.
requirements. But we have taken photos and videos of that portion for families before, and we've had families be here when we open the vessel, wait while we do the screening process, and then put their hands in their soil after.
Oh,
Yeah.
and it's such a testament to how death curious people actually are, how much they do want to be part of some of the processy, but they're a bit scared, but if you walk along with them, they do want to be a little hands-on and do wanna be there and do wanna know what they can be involved in. I think that says a lot from what you're saying.
Yeah, if you set expectations, people are cool with it. They just wanna know for a couple of reasons, right? Either one, they don't trust the funeral industry. They've seen some terrible things happen and they wanna make sure their person is their person. But I think for
Right.
most people, it's just, "Oh, I can be a part of this process." Like, "Oh, I can see how this works." Like, I'm really interested in it. So they get to kind of live out that morbid curiosity a little bit whilst
Yeah,
also honoring their person and going through the entire process with them.
I think that's so cool. Now, um, what is some of the coolest things you've seen people do with a compost after? There's questions like, can you make jewelry? Can you do glass things? Can you do, um, parting stone and all these things you could do with cremated remains? What can you do with the compost? What are some
Yeah.
ideas or things you've seen?
Basically, like, your imagination is the limit. We can do the glass art, we can do the diamonds or the gemstones. We work with a company who puts it into clay and then makes pottery out of it. Um,
Wow.
Parting stones you can't do yet. We're working on them, working on it. Because can you imagine just like a giant boulder made of
Yeah.
compost? That would be so cool. But we've had families we've
Come
had
on,
families do
Justin,
all
get it.
kinds of things, right? Let's
Yeah.
go. Um, we've had people place the full amount in a traditional cemetery. We have some at the National Cemetery close to us. We have families who've planted in an arboretum. A couple of cemeteries have created specific terramation gardens so
Wow.
that people can place the soil there. There's some that have gotten little bags and traveled the world. What else have we had? Trees are the biggest thing. So, planting trees either in their yard or at arboretums or specific places, because a lot of people want to become a tree when they die.
I know. I don't know where that whole thought became, but it is what so many people say is I want to be. I think that's why that ding dong burial pod thing keeps going around is because it's the great in concept.
Right.
Doesn't exist, guys. Doesn't exist, but it's
Yes.
great in concept.
Yes.
So,
This is how you do it.
something to say about diamonds, the diamonds that you make. A lot of people think that's just from cremated remains. You can use any organic item. You could use hair. So if your loved one is buried, just take some of their hair, collect that prior. You can make a diamond out of it. You could take a baby blanket if it is fully nice and organic and create a diamond out of it. So the diamonds are not just cremated remains. They can be anything you want. Now speak to embalming. Some people are asking, can they be embalmed prior to this? Can you do a green embalming? Which I know these answers. Yay. But yeah, tell us all about that.
So, no, at this time, you cannot be embalmed prior to our process with regular or green chemicals. The whole point of embalming is to stop or hinder the decomposition process, and our process entirely relies on that taking place. We do plan to test further in the future with some green chemicals, but we're pretty sure it is either going to make the process too long to be feasible or just not work altogether. Um, we travel people with dry ice or gel packs so they can travel from anywhere unembalmed. We are able to do like trauma reconstruction um, unembalmed also. I've worked some magic with that because we know that you need dry tissue to put someone back together. And vinegar is really great at dehydrating tissue, and that is natural. So we've done some cool work with that, but no traditional embalming, which I don't know how I feel about because I was an embalmer and I kind of miss it a
Yeah.
little bit, but also like I kind of don't.
Yeah. That middle ground.
Right.
So, I mean, let's look at the reality sometimes. We get bodies that are 2 weeks decomposed. They're in body bags, they're in plastic. We don't even want to open the body bag because the smell and the condition of the person, or they're tissue and organ donors and they have plastic rods in them or things of that nature. Are you working with those bodies? Can you take any conditioned person and just pour them out of the the bag into the I mean, I know how messy some of these
Yeah.
individuals get in decomposing situations. So,
Yep.
what have you encountered in that in terms of that?
None of it hinders our process at all. That's going to ultimately happen to them anyway in their vessel. So
Right.
we just wear a respirator and completely PPE up so that we're comfortable in the situation. And we try our best to be as dignified as possible getting them into their vessel. I did have a gentleman who had been in a bathtub for 2 weeks before he was found. One of the worst cases of decomposition I've seen. Went into his vessel. Once he's covered with the straw and alfalfa, you can't smell anything anymore. um, our local
Yeah.
tissue donor places know when they're working with us that they don't put the plastic in. Um, so we're saving there also. But
Yeah.
yeah, none of it really makes a difference. The only thing people can't do before our process is donate to science full body because they're almost always embalmed.
Yeah, true. Yeah, they have to be preserved to be able to go to be a cadaver for medical reasons.
Mhm.
Um, I just had a great question in my head and now it's gone. Somebody, Debbie's asked me, didn't you visit this place in one of your videos? Not yet, Debbie. That's why I kind of held out. Katie had spoke to my class and I think spring or summer. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to get a trip booked and I'm going to get out to Washington. And it just didn't line up with NFDA, the National Field Directors Convention in Vegas and all this stuff. And so I was like, screw it. We need to do this now that this is available, which is awesome. So
I will
let's get,
tell you,
yeah,
coming up in February, we are having TerraCon, which we
I
would love to throw
saw.
you a ticket for. So it's going to be all things terramation. It's going to be the first time that the science and the development of the science is really talked about publicly. And it's open to everyone. It's not just funeral professionals. It's anyone who's interested.
Oh,
So
very cool. Is that
yeah,
in Washington?
it is in February 21st at the Tacoma Convention Center.
Oh, see, I got Josh. Really, everybody, if they've watched my channel, you guys know Josh, my man, and he's done everything in the funeral business pretty much that I haven't, for the most part, in our area. But he's a big Sasquatch guy, and so you are in like the mecca of Sasquatch where you
We
are in
are.
Washington. So
Yes.
I might have to package him up and bring him with me to to come
Awesome.
out
Love
to
it.
Washington. So let's see, do one more question. I'm gonna have you take us on a little tour. Is it the
Mhm.
same as being cremated that you can have breast implants, fake hips, and everything? That all comes out after, correct?
It all comes out after, it's not charred like after cremation, so it's as shiny as the day that it went in pretty much, and it's so interesting to, like, see all of this compost, and then there's just a breast implant there, and you just boop, out it goes. It's just there, and it's easy to remove, and everything is recycled just like after cremation, and then we donate the money we get from that.
And like fake nails would just be in there hanging out too,
Yep,
which is
that's crazy.
wild.
Yeah,
Like I
that's
never
the
even
first
thought of
time I
that.
saw that, freaked out. Yep.
You're like, "What is this?"
I was
That
like,
just
I don't
makes me I
yeah.
think nails disassociated from the body just makes me think of, like, all the horror movies where you see where they've tried to get out and the nails are broke off and stuff, and
Ugh.
it takes me to a creepy place. So,
Yes, for sure.
oh my goodness. Alright, well, yeah, show us what you can
All
show
right.
us.
Let me see how well
Yay!
my internet is going to do, but here we go. All right. So this is our kind of front of
You did not joke about the plants. Yeah.
yeah, I have a problem. It is what it is. We have office dogs, so they will also greet
Oh.
you. That's all Chucky down
Oh
there.
my goodness.
Yeah. And then you're gonna come through. Let me know if the internet gets spotty.
Okay.
This is our arrangement room where we meet with our families.
I love that light. That's
These are keepsakes
okay.
that we have. And then out into the facility itself. So this is where phase one of the process happens. Do you still have me?
Yes. Yep, you're still there.
Okay, perfect. So behind all of these tree walls are our vessels. I'm gonna open them up.
Oh, the little
And
stuffed
families
animal.
decorate their vessels. 24 vessels in this room.
Are they just stacked too tall? One, just two? So how do they get up to the third one to like visit it, I guess?
They can
Oh, kind of like at
climb up.
Home Depot kind of thing. That's what
It's
I'm
like that.
picturing.
This is our show vessel. This vessel has been on the road with us a lot. It just kind of gives people an example of what a vessel looks like. It's shorter than our regular vessels. This is what we tested with pigs in at the beginning.
Okay.
Um, Inside of it, that is our compostable garment that everybody is dressed in. Just like a fluffy cotton bathrobe with little booties because I hate cold feet. So
I'm the same way.
gotta have the booties.
I'm the same
Yes.
way. I'm always like, please just bring them socks at least. I don't want their
Right.
little naked toes.
Yes. Yes. So the body would not be this high up in the vessel normally. It would be about halfway down, and then more of the straw and alfalfa would go on top of the body. But this is just an example of the kind of things that family could do if they wanted to put flowers and such in the vessel with their person.
So you reuse those vessels.
We do. They are
You
cleaned with hot water and Dawn dish soap,
God bless Dawn. It's the most amazing
right?
thing ever.
Yeah. So that's the vessel. I'm going to show you right here. This is an entire person ready
That's
to go home.
wild. And is that family taking all of them with them? That's crazy.
One up there is just taking two of the little ones. And then the rest, like I said, will go to our greenbelt property.
Wow.
What else? I'll show you our prep room is super boring because there's no chemicals in here.
But in order to be a legal funeral home, you must have specific items in your preparation room to keep your license active. So it'd be the same with if you had satellite locations, but they were legal funeral homes. You would have to have specific
Mhm.
items at that building, even if you weren't using it.
Yes,
That's so
exactly.
cool.
So simple. It's where families come to bathe with us if they choose to. Yeah.
Have you done any like Muslim or Jewish or any like outside of Christian or someone you choose this process outside of their traditional disposition for their religion, I guess is a better way to phrase it.
Yes. And it's been completely wild because I don't know about where you are, but here in Washington, our funeral homes are so segregated. Like I say, hair and funeral homes are the two most segregated industries, right?
Yeah.
We have Jewish funeral homes, we have African American funeral homes, we have Muslim funeral homes. I returned home, I've served more wide array of people that I've ever served in my life.
You're glitchy, Katie. You might need to go back to your first place you were at. Yeah. That's the sweet spot in your building right there. Yeah,
Am
you
I
are.
better now? Okay. Yeah, so I've served so many different religions, races, everything. It's been wild. There's something in everybody that we want to go back to the earth.
That's just so I think that is fascinating just because of how specific religions are with disposition choices and stuff, and how if some of the process goes against their religious beliefs, the lag time or anything, that's fascinating. I had not thought about before. Um, Tell me, someone asked a question. Gosh dang, what was the question? Well, tell me, size-wise. I mean, obviously the vessel is only so big, kind of like alkaline
Mhm,
hydrolysis or what people call water cremation. You can only be up to a certain size to fit in the unit. What is
mhm.
your max weight or it's hard because weight doesn't always define it's how that weight is distributed, but what do you do in that
Yeah.
situation?
For us, our maximum weight is 500 pounds. So our
Okay.
vessels can only hold 1,500 pounds maximum. So once the person is in there with that straw and alfalfa, it has to be below 1,500. So 500 pounds is our max.
Okay. Do you foresee maybe making larger units or
Yes,
having
we are.
one larger unit available?
Yes, we're working on having a couple of larger units available for those people that are larger. We also know that people that are larger take longer. Um, so we explain to our families that your person might be here for 90 days, might be 100 days. We're not totally sure. And the interesting thing is, while it does weight does make a difference in time, it also doesn't sometimes. So I had a little 10-year-old boy who was 50 pounds. He took 90 days total. I can't tell you why. He just had more energy to use up. That's the
Yeah.
only way I can explain it. So
Hmm.
time does change per person, but it's as unique as we are as people.
Well, and you wonder how fat contributes as opposed to muscle and there's a lot of factors. As I always say, two people who on paper look exactly the same, if you embalm them and bury them in exactly the same way, they can decompose very differently because there's
Mhm.
so many factors. There's so much that goes into it, and everything is not a standard coined answer when it comes to all of that.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, for the people that want to know, there just isn't answers. So, which is
Yep.
wild to, I think, a lot of people because they want that definitive. How often
Mhm.
do you dump out after 30 days and you're like, "Oh crap," and you have to scoop them back in because they're not quite to where you need them to be?
Never. So our
Okay.
vessels are constantly that would that would suck. Our vessels are constantly monitored for temperature and moisture content inside. So when the temperature is completely room temperature, we know that there's no person left inside, and we can move to phase two.
That's amazing. Has anybody said, "Hey, can we put like a GoPro in there?" or "Hey, can we put a camera?" or just to
No,
kind of like see what happens over the course and then like speed it up? Like that'd be the coolest video ever. You got
that
to
would be
admit.
the coolest video. But I'm thinking like you're just gonna see the straw and alfalfa turn
You'd have to
brown,
have a little light, I guess, or, like, keep
or like
pockets of
night vision.
air. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd have to have something, but I would guess that that would hinder when you're trying to keep a space away from the body, you're gonna then have this patch
Hmm.
of skin left that didn't
Yep.
get to be broken down possibly,
Exactly. Yep.
but it would be cool to see.
It would be cool. It would be super cool. Maybe we'll do it with one of the pigs because
I'm
it's a pig.
surprised with alkaline hydrolysis, they haven't, like, stuck a camera in to watch the whole
Yeah,
process yet. Like, what come
that would be
on,
cool.
people, let's do this.
That would
That's
be. I'd
awesome.
watch
I'm
that.
down
Yeah.
for that video, yeah. Like, if they can speed it up to about less than 10 minutes, then I'm down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. My attention span's not much longer than that.
What are other, great questions that people have asked you that you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's the greatest question ever?"
Let me think.
Things we have not asked you yet.
There are no bugs in the vessel. That's one of the biggest ones. Is do
Oh,
you put
okay.
insects in there? No bugs. The temperature gets too warm in there for bugs to survive. So even if, let's say, the person was in a state of decomposition where maggots were an issue, those suckers would be dead in no time. Yeah.
That's odd. That's all I'm picturing is, like, scarab beetles, like, on the science shows and, like, on
Yep.
bones and stuff where they dump in the scarab beetles to
Clean
get
it.
rid of them.
Nope.
No bugs.
Not in our process. No.
Does do you think that hin could that help? I mean, in the natural composting, you got worms and you got
Hmm.
other insects and things. Would that help speed it if you did do that?
No, because it wouldn't allow the temperature to get up inside the vessel for the bacteria to do the work.
Oh. So they
Yeah.
can't survive in that atmosphere, so we don't need them.
Right, exactly. And bacteria
Interesting.
works quicker than bugs.
Yeah, bacteria is nasty, nasty. Um, so what's the longest someone's been there composting?
90 days total.
Okay.
It
And
was
you've
like
done children. I
87.
mean, you mentioned a 9-year-old. You've done have you done babies, like infants yet?
Yep, we do not charge for anyone under the age of 18, so we have seen a lot of children, a lot of infants, a lot of preterm babies. Um, I think it's a beautiful way for people to honor their kids, and the biggest thing I love about that is that my previous life doing cremations for children, they'd get back this tiny little urn, and there's 50 family members that might want some cremated remains, but there's such a tiny portion. With us, you're getting back 100 pounds of soil. There's plenty to share out with grandparents and aunts and uncles, and
That's
they
so
get
true.
to, yeah, they get to see that baby like live on in their yard or their plants too. So it's
And do
been very popular.
you put them in that full size even, or do you have a little bit smaller one?
We have a smaller one that we would use for infants, but any person over like a year old would go into the full size vessel.
Okay. Could you do a pet along with a human?
Washington State does not allow for that. They do not even allow same facilities. They don't allow us to have like a same lobby for a pet funeral home as a person funeral home. It has to be completely separate.
Now, could someone bring in like could if you're composting my dad and my mom's been cremated, can I bring in her cremated remains and dump them in with him?
We're not going to put them in the vessel at the beginning of the process because usually they will get wet and solidify. And then you end up with just a brick of cremated remains in there. But we will mix them with the compost at the end.
Okay. So you still do when you dump everything out in the end, can put it in a big vat of like what how big of a container does this dump out into?
It's about half the size of one of the regular vessels, and it's kind of cube
Okay.
shaped instead of rectangle. We just don't need the length anymore because the person's not full body length in there anymore. So,
And that's what they're in the second phase, as you said. So then you could
yep,
reuse that for the first phase for someone else. So you basically every 30 days can turn from the first vessel into the second vessels.
yep, yep. That's how we can take care of 74 per month.
That's wild. Okay. What else do you guys have questions on? We're going to give a last few for you guys a chance to ask some questions.
I'm gonna
Is
grab my
that
charger here real quick
no, you're
so I
good.
don't die.
So we're talking to Katie Houston from Return Home out in Washington, one of two states that have facilities for terramation in them. At this time, even though it's legal in multiple states and it's becoming legal fast across the country. New York, it just became legal in recently, I think about 2 months ago. I think it was right before NFDA that New York became legal. But they don't have facilities yet. So just because it's legal doesn't mean anybody actually has a facility for it. What is the other state besides Washington right now?
Colorado.
So Colorado as well has a composting facility there. Now
Mhm.
let's throw this out after all the recent stuff. Return Home has nothing to do with Return to Nature, which was that funeral home who was uber terrible down in Colorado. And when it first came out, people were trying to connect the two.
Mhm.
Absolutely different. I did a video on that 2 weeks ago, chatting about what was going on down in Colorado, but Return to Nature, not anything to do with Return Home, who we're talking to today. So,
And when
did
that
you guys?
news broke, it was on the day that our episode of Shark Tank was going to air. And
Oh my
so
gosh, it was.
we were like having phone calls and all kinds of stuff from people thinking that we were part of those guys in Colorado. And we're like, no. So it was wild. I've never experienced something like that before. And then, like, we had families of people who had people in those funeral homes calling us.
Yeah.
I can't help you. I'm devastated for you, but I
Oh,
can't help you. It was one of the wildest experiences I've been a part of. It's horrible.
how long have you been a licensed instructor?
17 years.
I'm doing my math quick. So you were not quite licensed when the tri-state
Tri-state.
crematory happened, and that was
Yeah.
I was newly licensed, and that was horrible. Luckily, I mean, we didn't have the news media and social media and everything that we do now, so it didn't spread as grotesquely as it does now when you have anything happen. But we still had to ensure everyone and basically defend ourselves right off the get-go every time someone chose cremation. And that was hard. I can only
I
imagine
think
though
we've
getting that call
I think
and
we've
not
been
being
doing
able to
that
help.
though forever, right? Like, I remember
Yeah.
talking to cremation families like 2 years ago, and they're still like, "That one thing happened at that crematory one time, how
Yep.
can you guarantee that my person is my person?"
Yep.
So it follows us forever.
It does. One bad person kind of ruins the pile for a long time. And it's just something we can never get away from. There's only like 20,000 funeral homes in the country. So it doesn't take long for a percentage to be bad and be talked about. And we make great news media when anybody does something naughty. I mean, it's easy
Right.
to spin because there's grieving people, there's emotion, there's all this stuff wrapped up. So it makes for great media, which sucks.
Yes. Yes.
Sucks. Can you repeat again how much this costs? So
Yep. In Washington State, it's $4,950, including kind of everything you need: transport, a death certificate, the process, um, the remains back at the end. We're seeing it costs about $2,000 extra to ship someone in from out of state. We can do that from every state except Alabama, and we can also do Canada.
nice.
Yeah.
That's interesting you can bring in. Have you brought in from other countries at all elsewise or
Not yet. A lot of countries require the person to be embalmed in that country, so then it wouldn't work. To come in from Canada, if you fly in, you have to be embalmed. So if you're not in British Columbia, we fly you into Vancouver and then drive up to Vancouver and pick you up, because you can drive across the border unembalmed, but you can't fly.
makes so much sense, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then Alabama has laws that require you're embalmed to cross state lines also.
I thought Kansas did as well.
Not anymore. 2006,
Oh,
they changed.
nice. That's what I thought they did. I wish there was like a little list. I need some lists. I know you're putting together some good lists for handy stuff for funeral directors. Can you make that list too, please? Thanks.
I will. I will.
It's gonna just say everywhere but Alabama. There you go,
Yes.
Kari. Um, do you put markers where a family's compost is put out in the field? Do you GPS mark it? Do you do anything so they know where their family member is out in the forest field
No,
there?
nope, it's completely wild area, there's no trails or anything, so families don't go to that location, and we rotate where we're putting people so that we don't over fertilize an area, and so that, we make sure we're fertilizing exactly where we need to. We recently had goats up at that property to eat back the blackberries because they had gotten out of hand, and we want more native stuff to grow in. Uh, so that was cleared out, and now we're going to spread more people in those areas, but we don't mark where people are at all. It's kind of commingled and spread where it's needed, and families are given coordinates to the trail that runs right against the property. That's like a city trail.
So they don't walk out to where it's actually spread, but they can be near and
Yep.
be
They're
be
literally on the trail,
adjacent.
and it's the property. They know that it's the property right there.
That's very
But
cool. So
even
they
if you
can
walked onto the property, you wouldn't know any different. It doesn't look any
right.
different than regular soil, and one good rain on top of it, and it becomes part of what is already there.
That's so cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks everybody for your questions and yeah, this is so fun. I think people just want to know about it more. And so tell us one more time about TerraCon, right?
Terracon is February 21st, 2024 at the Tacoma Convention Center. It is
Oh, you're all frozen. There you go. The phone ringing is using all of your internet.
it
So there is a Terracon convention for anyone in the business, out of the business, out in Tacoma, Washington in February. So if you want to dive in and know more about this, want to visit and get to see things and kind of really you can plan, you can pre-plan. That is a great place to do it and to go visit Washington, where the Sasquatch are, right? So it looks like we might have lost Katey, but thanks to Katey and everybody at Return Home for welcoming us in and for us getting to see the facility and the loved ones that are there of families. So that was really great to see kind of the backside. That's what you guys love, right? Is getting to see behind the scenes. Thank you all. Make sure to check next week. We are going to be live with a death doula on Wednesday evening. So I'll be posting this again like I did this time, so you know when and where to join us. It'll be 5:30, I believe, Eastern Standard Time here. We'll have a death doula telling us all about the role of a death doula and how that is kind of changing the course of people dying across the country. Thanks, everybody. Bye.